Rob Laizure, 1969 graduate of Army Navy Academy. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you coming out and spending the day with us and giving us an opportunity to introduce you to our Corps of Cadets, our parents, and some of the alumni who haven't had a chance to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm just honored to be here. Seriously, it's just, it's great to see my old stomping grounds, so to speak. So thank you.
Of course. So tell me a little bit about your, I guess, your journey to Army and Navy Academy. How did you end up here? You know, what did you experience when you were here? How did you end up at the Academy?
So I grew up in a, you know, I would say a great family. My father served in the U.S. Navy and during World War II, USS California, Stanford graduate. My mom, great housewife and mom, but I was one of those kids that had some discipline, I don't want to say issues, but my parents felt that I needed to step it up a little bit, grow up a little bit, right? So they reached out to Army Navy Academy. They asked me if I would like to go, came over, took the exams, the interviews, and the rest is history. So I enrolled my junior year.
Your junior year of high school, you came to the Academy?
Yes, I did.
So you had a little bit of a background in what schooling is like at another, maybe at a public school or a private school, and
public.
You wanted something a little different.
My parents did.
Your parents did?
Yes.
Okay. And so what did you find when you got here?
Wow, just it was a different way of life. I was used to my home, you know, having meals with my brothers and sisters, seeing mom and dad around the table, to chow hall, to, you know, now I've got to spit shine my shoes. I got to, you know, take care of my uniform, polish my belt buckle. All of a sudden it became a whole different world to me. And so it was just like literally night and day between my home life and now Army Navy Academy.
And how did that sit with you?
I didn't like it much. I had some discipline problems. I rebelled here at the Academy. And I got extra duty. I remember Major Bruce, I had to march in front of his office. I don't know if I should share this. I think I had 100 hours of extra duty. And I thought that I was just going to beat the system. Like, they're not going to teach me, but they make you march 100 hours. I think I wore out 2 or 3 pairs of shoes. And all my friends were going to the beach, right? They're surfing, having a great time, and I'm marching. So how do you think that went over? That did not go over well.
Do you think that you set a record with that?
I think I was one of, I do. I think if we look back, 100 hours is probably one of the top 10 anyway, okay?
I bet we've got some records. We could probably look that up.
Oh, I bet you do.
If there's anybody maybe listening to this podcast who wants to comment, who wants to say that they've beat that record.
They're going to say, Laizure got 120 hours. Come on.
I love it. I love it. Well, so coming to the Academy, it sounds like you're pushing some boundaries. Your parents recognized that, you know, that was what was going on at home, and sure enough, you showed up here and you did the same thing.
Right.
But what did you, so how did you finish out? How did you finish out, and then maybe tell us a little bit about your reflections?
I finished out. I learned that, look, you're not going to beat the system, okay? So I stopped with the extra duty. You know, I started accepting the discipline and started to kind of embrace it. Do you know what I'm saying? In other words, not really being excited about it, but embracing it. In other words, I knew, you know, if I didn't do my homework, or if I didn't, you know, if I rebelled against a teacher, that I was going to get extra duty, right? So I learned that. That's what I learned, that you need to kind of shape up a little bit, kind of grow up a little bit.
I've heard folks say that putting their son or their daughter, for parents of girls in all girls boarding schools, that it changes the relationship between the parent and the child, and that some of the parents, you know, much of a parent's job is to become a disciplinarian and to become kind of a behavior monitor, and that once you put your child in a boarding school environment, they're then getting that from that school environment, and the relationship that the child then has with the parent is able to really grow and mature in a way that perhaps wouldn't have until much, much later, and after that child is, you know, out of the home and becoming an adult on their own, and they're then responsible for themselves. Would you say that you can relate to that? Do you think your parents could relate to that?
I can. So the reason I came to Army Navy is I was ditching school. Nothing, so it was not, I had total respect for my parents, for my mom and dad. I had respected them. I felt that I was an okay son, but, I ditched school. I was not doing the things that I should be doing. I wasn't studying. So I think that to answer that question is then once I got back from my junior year at Army Navy is yes, I started seeing my parents on a different level, so to speak, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoyed being home my junior year after leaving Army Navy Academy.
You enjoyed being home?
And the relationship I had with my parents.
Okay, and how it changed?
Yes, it changed. The relationship got better. I had better relationships with my father and my mom. Because I made my bed in the morning.
Oh, right. So you mentioned earlier when we were talking, you mentioned that when you came to Army Navy Academy, you kind of compared it to having an empty toolbox when you arrived. And
yes.
That you went through a process where you were then able to fill that toolbox from your experience here. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I like the empty toolbox illustration because just, picture that in your mind. You've got a toolbox and it has tools in it, right? So we're talking about Army Navy Academy and how they give you and develop tools for your toolbox after you leave. Well, I came with an empty toolbox, right? So, I needed to grow up. So that empty toolbox did not have any tools in it when I came to Army Navy Academy. But as I went through the academy, I learned things like, what does honor mean? What does integrity mean? What does having character mean? Those kinds of tools that you need to have in a toolbox to have a good life. Because if you don't have honor, integrity, and character, what's your life going to be like? So I really felt that Army Navy Academy gave me those tools for my toolbox. As I grew up as a cadet and became more mature, those tools became real. It really meant something to me. The honor part meant something to me. The friendship part, everything that I learned at the academy finally meant something to me.
Mm. And you graduated. Tell us the story about how, your whole time at Army. So you came in, you were pushing boundaries, you had a lot of extra duty.
I left. I didn't want to come back. I just said, I've had enough. I don't want to come back. So I went back to Phoenix. And my parents were gracious about it. They said, fine. So I went back and went back to public school and started my senior year at public school. And I remember probably the first 6 weeks, I go, what in the heck did I do? What? I've got friends there. I got people I care for. I got to tell you, Major Bruce, which was the one that always would watch us on extra duty, I missed Major Bruce. I'm marching that 100 hours extra duty. I missed the guy. Well, how come I missed Major Bruce? Because he was a part of my disciplinary growth, so to speak, or discipline growth. So I missed it. And I remember going into my parents' bedroom and just saying, Mom and Dad, I want to go back to Army Navy Academy. And that did not go well with my dad. Of course, it did my mom. And they asked me why. And I said, because I want to finish. I want to go back. I want to get good grades. And so they sent me back, and I was on the honor roll. And I'll tell you what, the school shaped me and molded me, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Because what Army Navy gave me, it's kind of like it's kind of like baking a cake, right? So Army Navy gave me the cake. It gave me the start of my life. That's what it did. And then as I progressed, and of course I became a Christian, and my Christian values gave me the frosting to the cake. Is the way I look at it in my life. So my Christian values gave me the frosting, my relationship with Jesus, and my life was changed forever. But you got to have a foundation, right? I always say, and that foundation was Army Navy Academy. And I'll scream that from the rooftops till the day I die.
I hope you do. So after you left, you've had a very, very successful career. And one of the things that we really want to communicate and help people understand is that when you come through the Army Navy Academy, you do have a choice of careers because we equip you, because we are a college prep academy. We're preparing you for college, the trades, entrepreneurship. If you want to go into the military, you have all sorts of choices ahead of you. Talk to us about the choices that you made and kind of the success that you've had in your career post-graduation.
Well, first of all, I think one of the areas I'm most proud of is my service in the Navy, serving in the communications in Morocco, and I had a top secret security clearance, which I was very proud of. Very proud of our country. I think when I got that clearance, it was not so much the clearance, it's what I learned about our country, and just how much I was so proud of being in the Navy and serving our country. And so that was but that was an extension of Army Navy Academy, for crying out loud. I graduated in '69, and the next thing I know, I'm in the Navy and, going to Morocco. But I really believe the success I had in the Navy was 100% due to the training that Army Navy Academy gave me. Like I said, it gave me those tools. Could you imagine going into the Navy without integrity, without character, without honor? I mean, many people do. But so that transition was an easy transition for me. And then graduated from the Navy and came back to Phoenix and went into the business world.
And tell us about your business career.
Well, I've had successes and failures. I think that I want to share a couple stories about the discipline and the structure and how it affected some business decisions that I had. So, you think about it, you pass out. Remember that we were talking about passing out in a parade and spit shining his shoes and marching and all these things that, as a cadet, why am I doing these things? What is the end purpose? I'm just getting tortured, and part of it. And then part of it is you're proud. You're proud. They'd say, hey, good job, Laizure, on shining those shoes, or hey, good job, your uniform. So it's what I'm saying, as you're learning that discipline, it's painful, but then you get that pride of accomplishment because you've accomplished something. You've satisfied your peers. You satisfied somebody up the chain of command, right? You learn what the chain of command is. So, but I remember a couple of stories we talk about the discipline was my favorite story is I was in for a customer, Flack Outdoor Advertising. It was in Colorado. It was below zero. It was snowing sideways. I'm leaving my room. They hired me to come in and consult. And, I leave the hotel room and it's snowing sideways. And so for a brief moment, I said, no, I can't do this. And then all of a sudden I just stopped. I just said, no, you can. Well, where did that come from? That came from Army Navy Academy. Didn't come from, I love my parents, but didn't come from home, came from Army Navy Academy. So example after example, how I'd be the first one. And even this last company that I developed, Full Contour, which is a company we had in China, we had our sales meetings at 6 a.m. every morning. Men, women, everybody came into the office in Phoenix at 6 a.m. start time, and you better be on time, and you better not be late. But do you know why I had it? Because I wanted to separate the wheat from the chaff. Because if somebody was willing to come in at 6 a.m., they're willing to work. If they whined about coming in at 6 a.m., out the door. So, but that 6 a.m. call for Full Contour, David, do you remember those?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 6 a.m. every morning.
Yep.
And so where did I learn that? Army Navy Academy. So, so I'm 74 and I'm looking back and I'm just going and so I met Colonel on this summer coming back and visiting the campus. And, you look back and so as you're leaving your legacy and as you look back, you start valuing things that were important to you. And so I just look at Army Navy and really how much of an impact. I can't even imagine where I'd be today if Army Navy was not in my life.
So, we have a lot of tours on campus. We meet a lot of people out in the community. We meet them around the state. And there's families out there who don't even know about the academy. There's families that could really, really benefit from having their son come through our program. What would you tell a family who was kind of looking at, well, I could send my kid to a local public school, I could, send them to the private school, or I could send them to the coastal town of Carlsbad, California, and put them in a military boarding school called Army and Navy Academy? What would you tell those folks?
That's a great question. And I would say, these are some bullet points. I'm going to go through these bullet points. I'm going to read them. I'm going to speak at the entrepreneurial school this afternoon with Colonel Blaine. And, so these are some of the points that I'm going to go over with the cadets. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches. What does that mean? Well, how do you have a good name? Army Navy Academy teaches you how to have a good name. So I've used that. So in my career, if I have a good name, I'm going to have customers. If I have a good name, I'm going to have success because my customers are going to love me. But if I have a bad name, they're not going to love me. Where did that come? That came from Army Navy Academy, teaching me the things I needed to know about honor, integrity, not just talking about it, but these teachers, the staff, what's the word I'm looking for? They're an example to you as a cadet. They're a living example. They're not just words. Put the money behind you. Work hard and the money will follow is another one. Safety's in a multitude of counselors. You've got to have people in your life that are going to tell you the brutal facts like, hey, this isn't going to work, Rob. I want that. But I got to have a counselor that I'm going to trust. Well, what better counselors can you get than Army Navy Academy? For crying out loud, I look back and I go, you got to be kidding me. Coach Mafucci, I understand he's in his 90s. He affected me then. And I didn't even play football. But just the way he carried himself, he was a man of integrity. He is a man of integrity. He is a man of character. This man lived it. So that's what they can't get at these public schools. Never, never, never give up. Winston Churchill, one of his famous quotes, right? Army Navy Academy taught me that. So all these values, all this, how I've run my career, every one of these points can be driven back to Army. That's what I tell a family. Look, you want your child to have these points? Send them to Army Navy Academy.
So as an alumni, and as someone who is so passionate about the mission and the culture here, what do you think is your response? You're talking about legacy. What do you think your responsibility as an alumnus is to the academy, and what do you wish that you could do, and what do you think that you would hope that other alumni do to re-engage or show up or participate, or how would you like your alumni network to behave? And
well, first of all, I got to say shame on me. Shame on me. I graduated in '69. I took this academy for granted. Don't take this, cadets, if you're listening, don't take this school for granted. I did. I let life pass me by. I have 7 beautiful children. I built a career, but I neglected this academy. I absolutely am. If I have one regret in my life, that's how I've neglected this school through the years and just let life pass by. And so, think about it. I graduated in 60 years ago. And so, just let life pass by. And so I'm sorry for that. And I think every alumni needs to check their legacy box. Like, so you're going to leave a legacy. If Army Navy Academy meant this much to me, it's got to mean something to you as an alumni. So check that box. Like, what can I do? So I'm still trying to figure this out, what I can do for Colonel Blaine and you and in the academy. And I'm kind of working through that. So I'm checking that box. I'll go, okay, so I'm still working through it.
Yeah. But the easy answer is you can show up.
I can
right?
show up.
You can come to our homecoming weekend this weekend, or
Yes.
the events that we host around the country, or even in town. You could host an event, and get your alumni brothers together. Maybe be available to, as a resource to families who are interested in sending their sons, that live in your area. Maybe you could be available for a phone call.
Absolutely. Yes.
Kind of
all
be another
those-
perspective.
Absolutely. Yes to all those questions.
Yeah. Well, I hope that we see you on campus more.
You
I'm
will.
sorry that it took, so many years before we got to see you back on campus, but it's been great to get to know you and hear your story, and I hope that we see you a lot more.
Well, thank you. Accept my apologies for not being an alumni that I should have been. But I think that now that I realize that what the school really has meant to me, I think I can do a better job being an alumni.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, you're part of the brotherhood.
thank you.
So you're always welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.